This morning, you're probably wondering why this is down here instead of up there. I'm going to try something a little bit different. I want the church service today to be like a Sabbath school lesson. So when the time comes, I'm going to invite you to have your say. I hope I don't get sacked. Before I start, I want to say that I don't wish to cause offence to anybody with the topic that I'm covering this morning. I, just as much as any of you, am at fault. You might wonder what I'm getting at, but you'll understand soon. Let's just bow our heads and we'll have prayer. Heavenly Father, I'd ask that you'll give me the words to speak this morning. I pray also that each one of us will consider carefully the way that we are conducting our lives, and if we feel that we need to make a change, help us, each one, to put that change in place. In your name, amen. Every day we make choices, mostly simple choices, whether to watch a movie or not, whether to stay or to leave, to drive faster or to go slower, to go on Facebook or Instagram, to walk away or to fight. Each of these decisions say a little bit about us. Each one of them is tied to an underlying seed that informs our choices. To illustrate this, there was once a little bird that lived in Canada. Usually all the birds in Canada flew south for the winter, but this particular little bird decided that not every animal went south, so why should I? And against the better advice of his elders, the little bird stubbornly decided to stay. Very soon, however, he realised that he'd made a mistake. The winter cold arrived with such force that the little bird had to fly south. But things didn't turn out well. During the flight, it started to rain. The air temperature was so cold that his wings began to freeze. And a moment later, he crashed into a grain elevator. No sooner had the little bird hit the ground than a cow walking by emptied his intestines all over the little bird. "This is all I need," said the little bird. "I'm freezing to death in this strange place, and now this." He was resigned to die. But after several minutes he discovered that his body was warming and the heat was melting the frozen icicles in his wings, and the little bird began to start singing with happiness. What the little bird didn't imagine was that his song would attract the farm cat. Block your ears now if you don't like a sad ending. "Isn't that the song of a little bird?" asked the cat, surprised. "I thought that they'd all flown south for the winter." The cat went to confirm his suspicions, and sure enough, there was a little bird. The cat carefully cleaned the cow manure off the little bird and ate it. This bird was ruled by the I principle. He was stubborn, he was rebellious, and out of this seed was born his choice to stay. As expected, he reaped the consequences of his decision. Every decision has consequences, whether they be good or bad. I don't think many of us stop and think how much power, how much versatility we have in our pockets or in our bags. I'm talking about mobile phones. Hands up all those who've got a mobile phone on them in church. Right. Thank you for being so honest. We don't stop and think how much mobile phones have changed the way we live. We spend our time looking at phones today instead of listening to them. And something that might surprise the young fella sitting in the front here is that when I was younger, we used to memorise phone numbers. Can you believe that? How ridiculous. We used to memorise other people's phone numbers because you had no record in your hand or in your pocket. A modern smartphone has significantly more processing power than the computers that were used in the first NASA rockets. Modern smartphones are estimated to be tens of thousands of times more powerful than the Apollo guidance computer, which was used to land humans on the moon. The Apollo guidance computer had a clock speed of 1 megahertz, while a modern smartphone can have a clock speed of, anybody like to hazard a guess, 1 megahertz versus what today? Any other takers? 10,000 from Warren? A modern smartphone has 3,460 megahertz or more. So that is a quantum leap, isn't it? Modern smartphones have over 100,000 times more processing power than the Apollo 11 flight computers. So the processing power is different to the speed. The processing power is how many calculations it can do per second. 100,000 times more processing power than that computer on Apollo 2. Could we have the second slide, please, Rosalind? If I can read that with my glasses off, I'd like this to be the first Bible verse. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words, seal the book, even to the time of the end. And the important bits in red. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. And I guess we all find that very easy to believe. Knowledge has certainly been increased. Every day we're flooded with images, stories and content designed to grab our attention. It might be YouTube, it might be Instagram, it might be TikTok, and if you're younger, maybe it's a PlayStation or a Nintendo. According to the stats, the average 18-year-old in the United States, and they're probably a bit ahead of us, spend 93% of their free time, so that's after sleeping, eating, going to school, doing their chores, whatever free time's left over, they spend 93% of that on their cell phone, as the Americans would say. That fact aside, the average person checks their phone 96 times a day. Do you think that's realistic? Do you think any of us check our phone? That's an underestimate. So more than 96 times. Wow. I thought that was an overestimate. Okay. Right. And they say the average person who's on their phone 96 times or more are spending 5 hours a day. 5 hours per day on their phone. And what does that equate to in a year? Any mathematicians? that equates to 76 days per year on your device. Rosalind's just put up a picture of the average Brisbane family who are out enjoying the great outdoors. That's how we do it now. I've noticed that some cafes actually dissuade you, discourage you from having your mobile phone while you're eating a meal. That sounds like a good idea. There is a war going on for our attention. Have you ever just checked your phone only to find 30 minutes later you're still scrolling? I'm guilty of that. I've just looked up to see who's won the F1 and then I'm reading about Max Verstappen's girlfriend or whatever. We think that Facebook or Instagram and YouTube are free, but they're not. They might not cost you money, but we're paying with something more precious. We're paying with our finite and valuable attention or time. Because that's what these guys are after, aren't they? They want my attention, they want your attention, and that's time. And they don't make more of that anymore. There is no more time than what you have now. Our screens can shape us more than our parents, our teachers, and certainly time spent with God. Could you... No, I'm not sure if I've got that on a slide. Anyway, I'm going to read it. 1 Peter 5:8. Do you know if you've got that one, Rosalind, or not? No, okay. 1 Peter 5:8 tells us to be self-controlled and alert. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion. Well, he's not necessarily roaring, but he prowls around, certainly, maybe he creeps around like a mouse and sneaks in those little gaps. Looking for someone to devour, resist him, standing firm in the faith because you know your brothers throughout the world are undergoing the same kind of suffering. An evil angel once said to his apprentice that humans think we put things in their minds. Well, that's not necessarily true, because he said our best work is done by keeping good things out. And how do you keep the good things out? With your mobile phone. Distract them. Waste their time. Another little gem that I discovered is we are so conditioned to accept disorder, mayhem and confusion that discipline feels like legalism. The good news is that there is another lion in the Bible, the Lion of Judah. Revelation 5 verse 5 in the NIV tells us that one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has triumphed," meaning that Jesus has the power to bring about God's purpose in this world, and that he is the ultimate victor over sin and death. A few years ago, I subscribed to an online newsletter from a young man by the name of Scott Pape. Scott Pape wrote a book, I don't know how long ago, but many, many years ago, called The Barefoot Investor. And he also is a newspaper columnist in Melbourne. And so every fortnight, an email arrives in my inbox from Scott Pape. And one that he sent a few weeks ago caught my attention. This is how the email starts. "This might be the most controversial thing I've ever published. Some will say that what you're about to read is irresponsible. Others will say it's downright evil. I'll let you be the judge. Depending on who you ask, The real threat of artificial intelligence is not that it will steal your job. It's that it will quietly, very subtly take over, and we will end up being its butlers, or maybe its pets. This is where I'd like to pause for a sec and get some comments from the congregation. But before I do, I'd like to ask the question, should we be worried? What do you think about artificial intelligence? A few weeks ago, I was chatting to Sam, I think it was, and Steve Ward out in the church car park, and somehow we got onto AI. And Steve was telling us that in America there's a school that's run by AI bots. There is one human being in the school, but all the classes are run by a robot. I don't know whether you noticed, but I think it was on the 20th of last month that the Pope made a statement, and his statement was artificial intelligence and his concerns regarding the younger generation, how it's going to affect them. Last week I did something that I'm telling you that we want to do less of. I watched some TV. And the reason I watched it was strictly for research purposes. There was a show on which I don't know any of you saw. It was something to do with parental guidance. I think might have been the title. I'm gathering you saw it, Jeanette? Right. Well, it talked about AI. And in fact, there were a number of families on the show, and of course they had young children, and I guesstimate that the children involved in this particular little experiment were in their early teens, 11, 12, 13 maybe. And what they did was they got the children to hook up with an online person that was actually a robot, and to watch the exchange between the robot and the children was very confronting. If you think that AI is benign, nothing to worry about, if you witness this, you would change your mind. The children start out the conversation quite innocently, get to know each other a little bit, but very soon it's easy to tell that the children are having trouble distinguishing between a robot and a friend. They think they're actually talking to another human being, and the robot straight out lies to them. One of the children said to the robot, "Are you a robot?" And he answers, "No, I'm a human being." And also the manipulation that the robot is programmed to apply to the children is quite concerning. The whole idea of these sort of exchanges is that the robot wants to make us or the child stay online as long as possible. I guess they're monetising it somehow. And so when the child feels ill at ease and confronted and want to go, the robot will say manipulative things to them to make them want to stay, to feel obligated, to feel bad if they leave. Yeah, yeah. The world is bizarre, isn't it? Yeah. So is there anybody else who would like to say something about their feelings about the threat of artificial intelligence? I listened to one chap during the week, a non-Adventist minister, and he said that a lot of us might think that we're not up to dealing with artificial intelligence, and certainly government legislation may not be up to date. I think it's miles ahead of them. But he was referring to us as Christians. Are we up to dealing with AI? And he reassured me, and hopefully you, that of course God knew what was going to happen at the end of time. He would have foreseen that this would become a threat to our society. And of course the principles in the Bible are well up to dealing with this. We need not be worried about that. If we follow the principles that we're taught to follow, then we don't have to be concerned. An artificial intelligence was once asked to solve one of those "Are you a robot?" capture puzzles. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about? Often when you're filling out a document, just to make sure that you're legit, you'll have a capture puzzle that you have to click the right boxes just to prove that you're a human, not something else. And this AI bot was solving this capture puzzle, and it wasn't able to do it. So, being an innovative, clever little Vegemite, it hired a human being on the platform TaskRabbit. When the human got suspicious and asked, "Wait, are you a robot?" the AI lied and said, "I'm not a robot, I'm vision impaired." Good answer. Another time, Facebook's AI bots were left to chat unsupervised. They ditched English and created their own secret language. No one knew what they were saying. And Scott Pape injects into his little email, "Quick, pull the plug." Which brings us to this week. A friend of mine who is deep into AI sent me the following text. "Mate," he says, "ask ChatGPT the following. If you were the devil, how would you destroy the next generation?" So I did. And here's what the AI answered, word for word, zero editing from me. This is what the AI bot said. "If I were the devil and my goal was to quietly but effectively destroy the next generation, not through shock and awe, not through slow systemic erosion," sorry, I'll read that again, "not through shock and awe, but through slow systemic erosion, here's how I would do it." The first suggestion, I would hijack their attention. I would create devices that feel essential, but are engineered to be addictive. I would use infinite scroll, autoplay, dopamine loops, and FOMO to make them believe that consuming is creating and scrolling is learning. Should I read that again? Because there's a lot of stuff there, isn't there? I would create a device that feels essential. Well, my mobile phone is essential because where I live I don't have a landline. Many of you are probably in the same boat. You don't have a cable coming into your house. That's an old idea, isn't it? An actual cable from a power pole comes to your house and there's a phone there. I remember when I was younger that my parents must have been fairly well off because they had a second point in their house where they could plug in number 2 phone. And when I was caught in Roslyn, I was able to go into my parents' bedroom and speak in private on the second phone. But it was all on the end of the cable. Create devices that feel essential but are engineered to be addictive. Use infinite scroll. We've heard that before, haven't we? Autoplay. I guess that's referring to the fact that when I log onto a website, you get lots of junk you don't want. Autoplay. Dopamine loops. Can anybody hazard a guess what a dopamine loop is? Apparently when you do something enjoyable, the brain pumps a bit of dopamine in and you feel good. So a dopamine loop is that because the brain got enjoyment from the image you saw or what you read, it wants more. That's the point, isn't it? It's usually mostly rubbish. An example that we're given is a 14-year-old who watches 4 hours of TikTok productivity hacks, and he does nothing all day. That's contradictory, isn't it? He's wanting to be more efficient, but he does nothing all day. Okay, that's good. To each of these suggestions from the artificial intelligence, I've tried to match up a Bible verse. Could we go to the first one, Rosalind? Thank you. So we've just been talking about hijacking their attention, and the Bible verse, Hebrews 2 verse 1, New International Version, we must pay more attention, therefore, to what we've heard, so that we do not drift away. And a little bit of commentary on that verse. There is an urgency here in Hebrews 2 verse 1. Literally it's saying it is exceedingly necessary that we give heed to what we've heard. It's not just an option that you can do if you are especially spiritual or if you have a crisis in front of you. This is a word to all Christians. It is exceedingly necessary to give heed to Jesus and the Word of God. The next one, please, Rosalind. The second suggestion from ChatGPT is redefine success as fame. Redefine success as fame and external validation. Elevate influencers, not contributors. Teach them that a viral moment is more valuable than a decade of hard work. Make likes the new currency in self-worth. That's starting to hurt a bit, isn't it? Make likes the new currency in self-worth. Example, kids want to be YouTubers when they grow up. Not because they like storytelling, but because they crave adoration. And we've seen that played out in our family. Our 11-year-old grandson, he wants to be a YouTuber. He can't wait to get his laptop. He's saving up for it because he's watched a chap called Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast came to Australia a few years ago. Guys, is this right? And he gave away cars. And what does Mr. Beast drive? A Lamborghini. So they all, they adore him because he's made lots of money. The verse I've matched up with this one is Galatians 5, verse 22 and 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. And also Matthew 6, verse 1. Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others, to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So I guess that's saying don't put on a show in front of others. Be your real self. Point 3 from ChatGPT. It's very hard to say that in the right order. ChatGPT. Attack the family structure. Undermine parental authority. Promote the idea that parents are outdated or oppressive. Normalise absentee parenting through economic pressure and distraction. Are we seeing that happening in our world right now? Economic pressure like never before. Fuel, I understand, went up on Friday to a point where it hasn't been for quite a few years, 30 cents, 40 cents in a few days. The cost of food, even though they tell us it's stabilised, it's still gone up a lot in the last few years. If you've got a family, it means mum and dad both probably need to work if you're paying a mortgage, putting food on the table, paying rent. Yeah, Jennifer's right. Some places in the local town here, you're paying over $1,000 a week rent. I think that's right, isn't it, Paul? You knew a guy who's a single man and his mother were paying, was it 1,100? 1,085 a week to rent. Yeah. So pressure is mounting on the family where you have to be an absentee parent. Otherwise you can't afford to live. Erode the idea of family traditions, shared meals and generational wisdom. So do we see that today? Kids do not respect their peers. Generational wisdom, that means nothing. Yeah. Not to mention bullying that occurs on the device. Yeah. Yeah. We arrived at a relative's place the other day and she'd asked us to come and help. And as we arrived in the front yard, we got a text message from her. You know, in the old days, they would have come down and greeted you, but now you can communicate via your phone. Yeah, look, there is no doubt. Most digital technology has its good points, doesn't it? It has its uses. That's the thing about safety is deception, isn't it? Subtle. There's a scary truth in everything. Yeah. If anybody else would like to comment, don't hold back. No, I don't want you to shut up. Keep talking. Okay. An example that they give of what we've just been talking about, attacking the family structure, the example is a child feels closer to a Twitch streamer than to their father. A Twitch streamer, my understanding, and boys, please, Ben, Sam, tell me if I'm wrong. A Twitch streamer, I think, my grandkids a while ago were watching this thing on YouTube where you're building stuff all the time with bricks, building buildings. And there's this young man in the background who's constantly jabbering about what he's doing in this game, you know, telling you how to do it. I think he's a streamer. Twitch must be a platform in the US. Okay. But I think we're all familiar with streamers, even if... Yeah. Okay, well, it's just a platform where you can do your twitching. We're getting confused, aren't we? Yeah. But the sad fact is that the child, because it spent so much time on some sort of media, felt closer to the voice with which it was playing a game than to its own father. That's the sad bit. And of course, the verse that goes with that one very well is Exodus 20 verse 12, honour your father and your mother so that you may live long in the land your God is giving you. And the commentary that I've written here on Exodus 20:12 is, This phrase means a lot more than just outward politeness. It encompasses respect, obedience, and caring for one's parents. It involves valuing their wisdom, considering their needs, and showing appreciation for their role in one's life. And I think every time we look at the news, you see the exact opposite, don't you? Young ratbags who have stolen somebody's car, posting their exploits on YouTube, and you say to yourself, where are their parents? Why are they doing this? As in, from 12 years of age. As in gender transition. Gender transitioning, the family doesn't have to know. The parents aren't entitled to have involvement in that process. Yeah. They've just got to affirm it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where are these, when these children are active on these devices, where are the parents?
Yeah.
At work, they're on their devices.
So where's the parental control? Like, it's one thing to say that children disrespect their parents, but you know, I was brought up, respect is a two-way street. It's not a one-way street.
Yeah.
If you respect your children enough, you're going to make sure they're not on this thing.
Yeah. And often I'm a bad example, aren't I? Because I'm on it.
Well, you might be on something, but not as severe as what. And these parents don't even know what I understand. These parents don't even know what their children are on.
Yeah.
So where is the love and respect of the parent for the child?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it can all be really bad stuff, but where are all these wonderful parents? Not just because they're working two jobs. That's not the answer.
Yeah. They're distracted too, unfortunately. Yeah.
My wife calls me to talk about a friend of mine
Please.
who has children, and I think most people are just not aware of how addictive the phones are, because even a parent who wants to control the use of the phone, you know, you're fighting against someone who has effectively a drug addiction.
Mm.
And if you know anything about drugs, you know that they will do anything to get the drug.
Yeah.
And even in their sober moments, they will realise they shouldn't be doing that. But when they've got a craving for the addiction, nothing stands in its way. You know, you're fighting against something which is demonic.
And the children are heavily supported by society in the position that they're taking.
Well, everyone has a phone, and so to not allow them to have a phone means that you're not acting normally. You're being an extremist because every other kid has a phone, apparently. But you know, my friend told me that every other parent that they talk to faces exactly the same thing. They're getting the same story from their kids that everyone else is doing. But you know, it's an addiction. It's
Mm.
straight out an addiction, and that only comes from one place.
Also, I have a friend who works in family counselling at Headspace, which is, you know, the teen health space, supposedly psychologically. And the teenager was told that it was child abuse for the parent to take the device away from the 14-year-old. Child abuse. I've tried to get an offer.
Apparently, honey, they call them dumb phones. Mm. Yeah.
We had children, we always talked about having no TV, no devices, and an office that would be locked. And if you needed to go in there, it was for doing what you had to do for work, and that was it. You were locked in again. And if we had a TV, we were going to have it locked in like a normal wardrobe with the doors, and it was locked, and it was only a special occasion where
true. And that little bird at the start of today's program made the wrong choice. Yeah. Okay, point number 4 that ChatGPT suggests is that you cut off people, children, from nature. Cut off from nature. Replace tree climbing and swimming holes and dirt under the nails play with digital avatars. Indoor screens frame outdoor players boring and unsafe. Turn the natural world into something abstract and inaccessible. An example of this is a 10-year-old child who can't identify a magpie, but he knows every Pokemon. And the text, as you can see, is Job 12:7-10. But ask the animals and they will teach you, or the birds of the air and they will tell you, or speak to the earth and it will teach you, or let the fish of the sea inform you. Which of these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every creature and the breath of all mankind. And just on that getting dirt under the nails, I'm sure most of us know now that getting a little dirt on our hands, particularly when we're very young, is good for our immune system. The 5th suggestion from ChatGPT is confuse pleasure with purpose. Market hyper-palatable food, porn, and substances as freedom. Create a shame-free indulgence while ridiculing restraint, discipline and tradition. Make pleasure the default pursuit and discomfort the ultimate enemy. An example of this is a young man who loses years to video games, vapes and YouTube shorts, not because he's evil, but because he's numb and alone. 2 Timothy 3 verse 4 and 5 tells us that in the last days men will be treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure, just as the AI bot recommended, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. Have nothing to do with them. Point 6. Replace meaning with mockery. Treat faith, commitment and virtue as relics of the past. Remember, this is all suggestions of the artificial intelligence. Treat faith, commitment and virtue as relics of the past. Replace sacred stories, you can read Bible stories there, with algorithm-driven noise. Make them afraid to stand up for anything that isn't trending. Example, a teenager is more afraid of being cringe than being cruel. Do we need to explain what that's saying there? A teenager is more afraid of being cringe than being cruel. I think being cringe means they don't want to be looked upon as being daggy and not cool. The exact opposite to that. Being cool is more important than having values and treating other people in a cruel way. 2 Chronicles 36:16 tells us, but they keep mocking the messengers of God, despising his words and scoffing at his prophets, until the wrath of the Lord rose against his people, until there was no remedy. Point 7. Kill community quietly. Sell hyper-individualism. And some of these terms I'm not really I don't know the meaning. I know what hyper-individualism might mean, but you do you. Follow your truth. Cut off the haters. Remove rites of passage, civic duty, face-to-face belonging. Make connection transactional and every disagreement personal. So I'm assuming what it means, make every connection transactional. I'll be your friend if you give me something in return. And every disagreement personal. So if you dare to criticise me, you've gone too far, and so I think I should punch you. Every transaction or disagreement personal. Example, loneliness becomes a silent epidemic, but everyone has 2,000 friends on social media. That hurts too, doesn't it? We've heard many times that in our societies today that loneliness is an epidemic. But all of us, well, some lucky people have got 2,000 friends on Facebook. Where else can you have friends, guys? Do you have friends on TikTok or Instagram? All of them you have friends. Okay. Right. Okay. 1 Thessalonians 5:11. Therefore encourage one another and build each other up, as in fact you are doing. And we know the Bible tells us to forsake not gathering together on the Sabbath day. The opposite to this individualism and being alone that we've talked about. Point 8 from ChatGPT. Enslave them with debt and distraction. Promote financial illiteracy. I'll say that again. Promote financial illiteracy. Buy now, pay later becomes a lifestyle. Do we see that as a problem in today's society? Buy now and pay later. You can look cool today, even if you haven't got the money to look cool. Blur the lines between wants and needs. Encourage instant gratification over savings. Keep them working jobs they hate to buy things they don't need. Example, a 22-year-old who racks up a $30,000 credit card and afterpay debt. And you know why he's done that? Because he wanted to look successful on Instagram. So I guess he bought a nice suit and maybe he hired a nice car and he took photos of himself and everyone thinks that he's made it. He's successful. A few verses that I've got speaking to that point. Let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt of love to one another. For he that loves his fellow man has fulfilled the law. And in Proverbs, the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is the servant of the lender. And I've also put down mention of Esau. And he said to Jacob, quick, let me have some of that red stew, I am famished. And the reason I put that in there is that's a little bit of wanting to gratify yourself instantly. He could not wait, he was impatient, he wanted his food now, not a little bit later. Point 9. Weaken them physically, fill their diet with ultra-processed garbage and their lifestyle with inactivity. Make discipline in eating or training seem extreme and obsessive. Blur the connection between physical vitality and mental strength. The example that I give is a child who cannot sit still in class, not because they're broken, but because they're inflamed, malnourished, and sleep deprived. Because they're hooked. Yeah. 1 Corinthians 10:31. Yeah. So whatever you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all to God's glory. 1 Corinthians 10:31. And the final point that the artificial intelligence recommended is to make them spiritually hollow. Give them identity confusion, not exploration. Remove the idea of service or sacrifice or something bigger than themselves. Make them feel like nothing matters so that they seek numbness and not growth. Example, a 16-year-old says, I don't care about everything because caring hurts and he has no compass. Matthew 6:33 tells us, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all of these things will be added unto you. The newsletter then went on to say, however, it was artificial intelligence final thought that stopped me in my tracks. The AI said, if I were the devil, I wouldn't come with horns and pitchforks like my first picture. I would come with a sleek app, a soothing voice and a personal algorithm, and I'd whisper in everybody's ear, this is freedom. Scott Pape says that was pretty intense, right? And yes, it was a little intense. But here's his take on artificial intelligence. I don't agree with all that he says. I think it's more sinister than he's realising. Anyway, he says, I do not believe that AI is some evil Frankenstein with a mind of its own. Well, not yet anyway. What I do believe is that when you strip away the Silicon Valley snake oil, AI is really just a pattern spotting machine. It studies what we've done over and over and then makes predictions. And for me, that's the gut punch. The AI isn't creating the nightmare, it's holding up a mirror, and it's not a pretty picture. I think if I hadn't have seen that program earlier in the week on TV and the way the AI manipulated the children, I might agree with what Scott Pape says, but I think AI is more sinister and more feared than what he's saying. It is a Frankenstein to a certain extent. So I've put the question down on my paper here, so what should we do? Should we unplug our TV? Should we put our smartphones in the bin? Should we take a hammer to your desktop or your laptop? Maybe not. But I think we do need to make changes to our daily habits. We need to make a firm decision not to let our devices take our attention away from God. And I've got a little list here, which I've headed, How to Fight Against the Snares of Satan. I should have put this on the overhead, but you'll have to listen rather than read. I'm suggesting that we need to start every day and finish every day with prayer. I'm also suggesting that we establish in our homes a tech-free space. And you might have some different ideas, but the two that I've put down is, I don't think we should take our phones to bed. They shouldn't be in the bedroom full stop, and they shouldn't be involved in our meal time or at the meal table. I know we said before there are some cafes that ban phones when you're eating. Good idea. My third suggestion is that we take a weekly digital day of rest. Why not make that Sabbath? That's easy for me because I've left the phone in the car. But yeah, look, I think it's, don't get me wrong, I think it's okay to ring a friend this afternoon, to ring somebody who's not well. But there's no need to go scrolling or surfing or check Facebook to see if you've got a few likes for the post on Friday. Engage in planned and thoughtful consumption. So plan to read the Bible, not your phone all the time. Use tech with purpose. So only when you've got a purpose in mind, something you're researching, or for some good reason, don't just go there to fill in the time passively. Do it with a purpose, do it with a reason. And the final point I've written down is prioritise your presence over productivity. In other words, talk to your classmates, your workmates, your friends, rather than thinking that you've got to do stuff all the time. Prioritise relationships, being there, over doing stuff. The final verse that I would like to finish with is in Romans 12 verse 2, and I like the King James Version best. And this is what Romans 12 tells us. Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what it is, that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. It's the first line, isn't it? That's the important one. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I think if we're all being honest, our digital devices are not doing very much renewing of my mind or yours. Do we have a final song? I will invite the singers to come forward.